Hello everyone and welcome to Power Rangers Stories. Here I bring you the untold and what could have been stories. So sit back, relax and get ready to listen to some more phenomenal adventures. Also don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell to get notifications on the latest videos. And may the power protect you. Ninja Storm, the Pink Ninja Ranger. Chapter 27, General Deception, Part 1. Focus. You don't have a wand like the previous mystics. You must learn how to do everything without one. Which means, keeping your mind clear and focused on everything you do. Listening to her mother's advice, Zoey raised her hand and focused all her energy on a statue of the mystic mother. Using the levitating spell she just learned, the statue raised a good 3 feet before falling back to the ground. With a growl, the Pink Ranger threw her hands up in frustration. How come I can't get this? I've been training with my magic for months. Why is this little spell causing me problems? It is understandable. You are tasked with protecting the world against an evil space ninja. No one expects you to be perfect. Except you. Her mother smiled indulgently at her and gestured for the statue. Maybe instead of spells tonight, you work in a little practice with your dino powers. You've done really well to not use them in battle. I know how much you worry about hurting your friends with it. It scares me. Zoey looked at the statue, but if there's one thing I learned from those nightmare callers, it's to never let the fear rule me. Very good. How about you spend the rest of your training session tonight on this? The more practice you get in the better. The same as with your magic. Zoey pulled her jeep to the curb at Storm Chargers, shocked at what she was seeing. Getting out, she noticed that Jenna was staring at all the things the guys had stuffed into Tori's van, while Raina was laughing so hard, she was having trouble standing up. Zoey looked over to see that Tori was helping the male rangers put their camping gear into the van. Andy, looking sheepish, was helping her. Looking, she determined that they weren't anywhere near done yet. I thought you guys were only going camping for a few days. Jenna asked as Hunter placed a box into the van. Yeah, Tori said, pushing a bag into the wall of more bags. This is enough gear to outfit a whole city. Raina, who was trying to breathe, started laughing even more. What? Hunter laughed. It's just the necessities, he defended, walking back into Storm Chargers to get the last of his things. Dustin walked out, carrying a TV in his arms, and Zoey exclaimed in disbelief. Oh my goodness. A TV? Really, Dustin? Everyone looked over as the fire ninja stopped at the van. Yeah. How else are we gonna watch the Supercross tomorrow? Dustin asked innocently. You're not supposed to watch the Supercross, Dustin, Raina sighed, looking at him adorably. That's why we're recording it for you. He shrugged his shoulders and put the TV in Tori's van. Yeah, well, if man was supposed to rough it, then why did he invent a portable generator? Shane asked as he walked out with even more things to pack. Because man got lazy? Jenna asked, innocently. This is so not camping. Zoey shook her head, and I am so glad our brothers are not here to see this. She looked at Jenna, who nodded in agreement. Look, now that I'm here, let's take some stress off Tori's van. We can load some stuff onto the trailer, and I'll take some passengers in the jeep. Sounds good. Shane agreed, putting some of the stuff in the back. But what is all this? I mean, you're poking fun at our stuff. He gestured to her stuff already loaded. Yes, well, she pointed everything out. There's my tent, sleeping bag, pillows, travel picnic table, hiking gear, a first aid kit, mini camping kitchen, and a propane tank. Turning, she looked at the boys. I usually travel with less, depending on where I go. But I've never been to the area that we're setting up at, and Tori said it's not a normal camping spot. So, I decided to bring some of the things we usually save for larger family gatherings. Just to be on the safe side. Notice, boys, not an electronic device in sight. Raina pointed out. Yeah, I mean, the propane tank is for the cook stove. I don't need a generator. My Jeep is going to be there. And I have a lighting system in the back for camping. Not to mention a battery-operated fan, hunting knives, an all-terrain rolling box with dry goods, and travel cooler with drinks and cold food with dry ice. She finished securing the straps to hold everything down in the mini trailer. Seeing the stunned looks on the guys' faces, she crossed her arms and smiled. First of all, I learned at a young age how to camp with my brother. He takes it very seriously. This is minimal. When I'm with him and other people in his group of friends, we have 10 times this much. But we're camping for a week versus 2 days. They usually take a bigger travel kitchen, larger tents, fishing gear and hunting gear, hiking and climbing gear, which I also have, and outdoors games for play. She's right. Jenna said, walking over. Last time we went, the games consisted of tag football, frisbee, tree climbing and sparring sessions. When they go camping, it's usually a big deal. No electronics allowed. Except for a satellite phone for emergencies. When it's just the guys, though, they rough it hard. Sleeping bags, fishing gear, cooler with drinks and a tent. That's it. The 4 friends nodded. You said first of all, Dustin looked at them, shaking his head, before going back to the van. What's the second? I was a Girl Scout. She said innocently. Yeah, we all were. Raina agreed, we made it to ambassador rank. Yeah, but Zoe's the only one who achieved the gold award. We reached silver. Jenna slung her arm around Raina's shoulders with a smile. Just to clarify, I was not a Girl Scout. Andy raised his hand. I was an Eagle Scout and earned the Eagle Scout award. He high-fived Zoe proudly. Okay. In the van, before I changed my mind, Tori rolled her eyes and climbed into the van, shutting the door. Zoe, Jenna, Raina and Andy got into the Jeep while the others got in with Tori. Thanks for giving us a ride, Tori, Blake grinned as he climbed in beside her. No problem, Tori smiled back. I wouldn't miss seeing you guys in the wild for the world, she told him. Wild my ass. Jenna yelled out. Plus, this way I know where you are when it all goes horribly wrong, Tori smiled brightly at Blake and the other guys, who frowned. Watch it, Tori. Zoe pointed to the Blue Ranger. Come on. Blake protested. We're highly trained ninjas. What could happen? He asked as they closed the van. Blake Bradley, I swear to Zordon, if you've just jinxed us, Zoe glared, I will sick Vixie on you. Then I'll let my brother have the rest. Everyone laughed at the scared look on Blake's face, only 3 of them knowing that she was serious. The Jeep was full of laughter as everyone was reminiscing about past camping trips. No way. Raina yelled, there was no way it was my fault. You were the one carrying the bucket. Andy pointed out. Yeah, but in my defense, she glared at her friend, you and your sister decided to prank me by jumping down from the trees. Scared the crap out of me. Laughing, Andy leaned toward the front. To be fair, it was Amy's idea. Oh, we know. She was always the one who got you in trouble. Jenna smiled. How you let someone 5 years younger get you in trouble is beyond me. Zoe shook her head with a grin, but she was pretty bossy. And not shy at all. They kept laughing, following Tori in her van. They slowed to a stop behind Tori as she pulled to the side of the road. What's going on? Jenna asked, confused. I don't know. Zoe turned off her Jeep, but let's find out. They got out and saw a girl in climbing gear standing in the middle of the road. They met up with the others to talk to the girl. Are you okay? Tori asked. What happened? Zoe asked, walking over to the girl. It's my friend, she's stuck, the girl told them, panicked. We need help. Do you guys have a rope? She asked desperately as she looked from one person to the next. You guys didn't happen to pack a rope with the CD player and the laptop, did you? Tori looked to the guys with a raised eyebrow. As a matter of fact, I did, Shane nodded, and he and Hunter ran to grab the rope and gear they had shoved in with everything else. Not like I don't have climbing gear in my trailer, Zoey said, shaking her head. I mean, I am the expert and all. The boys ignored her as they looked for the rope. A laptop and CD player? Seriously? Jenna rolled her eyes. Not now, honey. Hunter called out. We can chew them out later for it. Zoey rolled her eyes. Got it. Shane called. They ran to find a crowd of other people watching anxiously. We were abseiling, and her rope broke, the girl told them desperately as they looked down to the girl hanging from the cliff. She's stuck. Hold on. Shane called down to the girl. She let out a terrified scream, swinging in the wind. We're gonna get you out of there, the Red Ranger called. Lower me down, Zoey said, I'm the lighter and the most experienced. The boys nodded as they regrouped to get set up. Tori stayed back with the first girl for comfort. All right, Shane said, we should be ready to bail and go into Ranger mode if things get too ugly. Reading your mind, bro. Hunter slapped him on the shoulder before the boys went to secure the ropes, while Jenna and Raina helped Zoey get her gear on. The fire ninja stood on the edge of the cliff and glanced to her friends. Don't worry. I'll be fine. She reassured everyone before stepping off, with the guys keeping an eye on the rope system, helping to guide her down. She expertly jumped down multiple times until she reached the stranded girl, clinging for dear life on her rope. Hey, Zoey said, trying to get the girl to focus on her, you're doing great. The girl was shaking like a leaf and never responded. Keeping her eyes closed, she whimpered in fear. Don't worry. We're gonna get you to safety, all right? Finally getting a response, though not one she was expecting, the girl glowed red before transforming into a red Kelzak. What? She pulled back and started to climb up. The Kelzak grabbed her foot and pulled her back down. Damn it. Zoey glared in frustration. I am definitely Tommy's sister. She was beyond pissed as she kicked at the Kelzak. I should have seen this coming. Hearing screams and fighting sounds coming from the top of the ridge, she figured the whole thing was a scam. Holding on to her rope so she didn't fall, she had to defend herself from the red Kelzak. I hate you freaking Furies. As she jumped sideways to avoid getting hit, the Fury's small red sword connected with her rope, twice, severing the ties. Zoey tried to grab the top part of the rope, but the Kelzak kicked her back, sending her to the ground. No. Jenna, having come to the edge to see how her friend was doing and felt helpless as she watched Zoey fall. Firestorm. Ranger form. Morphing midair, Zoey was able to flip over into a safe landing. Looking up at the red Kelzak still hanging from its rope, she channeled her dino powers and sent a massive energy wave upwards. After destroying the red ugly, Zoey sighed in resignation, idiots, before Ninja streaking up the mountain and landed in front of her friends protectively. You guys okay? She asked over her shoulder, while calling on her glaive. Never better, Shane answered. I think it's time we cleaned up these clowns. Not an image I need in my head, Shane. Zoey called out, taking a defensive stance. Ignoring her, he looked at the others. Ready? Ready. Ninja storm. Ice storm. Thunderstorm. Lightning storm. Ranger form. Ha! Ninja Ranger power. They drew their weapons and resumed the fight. Now morphed, they were able to fight the Kelzaks easier. Everyone paired up to take out their own group of Furies. Jenna and Zoey swung their glaives in the air, almost like a choreographed dance, taking out one Kelzak after another. Having fun? Zoey asked with a grin. Just your everyday camping with the Power Rangers. Jenna flipped through the air and took out a Kelzak coming up behind their Pink Ranger. You? Good actually, Zoey slammed one of the Kelzaks into another, This whole incident made me think of some of the stunts Rita and Zed pulled with their putties. Do you remember the Halloween incident? Where they were chaperones. Getting rid of her glaive and summoning her chakram, Jenna sent it out and a trail of ice shot out, taking out 3 more of the Red Furies. You mean the Monster Bash? Where Zed disguised putties as children in Power Ranger costumes and lured Tommy into the graveyard? Yep. Jenna ducked as Zoey sent a flaming arrow at a group of Kelzacks behind her. Interesting that we fell for the exact same thing. I know, right? You want to play rough? Shane called out, getting back to his feet. He had just taken a hit from Zergain and looked pissed. Fine. Battleizer, he called on his armor and activated the flight mode. Flying into the air, he blasted the remaining Kelzack Furies, destroying them. A furious Zergain let out a yell and disappeared. After making sure everything was okay, Shane contacted Sensei and told him what had happened. Alright Sensei, whatever you think is best, Shane spoke into his morpher, before ending the communication and looking over to the van, where the others were standing. Alright, he told us that there's nothing we can do back there, that we can't do out here, he explained to them. Cool, so, we camp? Dustin asked hopefully as he and Hunter walked up behind him. We camp. Shane nodded with a grin as the boys celebrated. I still don't know how you can call it camping, Tori rolled her eyes as she opened the van door again. That's because it's not. Andy agreed. More like glamping. Raina snickered. Zoey walked up, talking on her phone. Okay. Pausing, she dropped her head with a smirk. Don't worry, big brother. I'll be careful. I always am. Looking over at Jenna, she imitated the crazy sign on the side of her head. Jenna had to cover her mouth to keep from laughing. No. Absolutely not. I refuse to let you challenge him to a sparring match. Raina, who had just taken a drink from her water bottle, laughed and spewed it all over Dustin, who had the unfortunate misfortune of walking in front of her. Jenna and Andy, also knowing what Zoey was talking about, started laughing hysterically. I love you, big brother, but you are not challenging my boyfriend, just so you can beat him up. She paused. No, you cannot have Jason do it instead. Glaring at her friends as they started laughing even more. And please leave Zach, Billy, Rocky and Adam out of this. Now I've got to go. I've got a camping trip to get to. Sort of. She smiled for a minute listening, then she stopped smiling before she lost all color in her face. Please tell me that was a joke? She looked panicked at Jenna. You didn't? Please tell me that you didn't? Jenna walked over, looking concerned. Thomas James Oliver, I will kill you. Everyone started to get concerned as Andy and Raina joined the 2 girls by the jeep. Don't you brothers prerogative me. You know he doesn't. Hello? Tommy? Tommy. Looking at her friends in frustration, Zoey calmly closed her phone before putting it in her jacket. He hung up on me. Who did he send? Andy asked, putting a hand on her shoulder. Was it one of our brothers? Jenna smirked, because Nomad has too much respect for them to start anything. Or to be baited. And don't get me wrong, but there's nothing intimidating about Billy Boy or Zach Man. Nope. None of them. Raina, looking confused, crossed her arms and thought, then, who else would he send? I mean, we've pretty much gone down the list of potential suspects. Who's left? Trailing off, she looked back up with wide eyes as Andy and Jenna came to the same conclusion. Wait, how is that possible? He doesn't know. With her hand on her mouth, Jenna looked seriously scared. Which, considering she faces evil space ninjas on a daily basis, is pretty bad. Or does he? She stared. Z? He must know. And I think that's the point. I just want to know how he knows and why he hasn't said anything to me. Sighing in defeat, she looked around at the other rangers staring. Come on. We've got a camping trip to get back to. Should we be worried about something? Shane asked, concerned. Not unless my boyfriend decides to show up and demand to know why my brother sent a third-degree black belt, with a genius-level IQ, 2 PhDs, and a minor career in auto racing to interrogate and challenge him to a sparring session. Oh, and he just happens to be my ex-boyfriend and the blue Turbo Ranger. Looking down as she got into the driver's seat, she didn't see the looks of shock and sympathy tossed around before settling into understanding. I shouldn't be surprised. Nothing stays private with him for long. And he probably had a serious sparring session with Justin after he figured it out. She looked up with a smile. It's okay, though. Keep enough secrets, and they come back and bite you in the ass. Putting on her sunglasses, she waved and started the engine. All aboard who's coming aboard. Effectively stopping any more questions, she cranked her music to wait. Come on guys. Let's get this no camping trip over with. Tori said with a grin. Come on Tori. Don't say anything until you experience it, Blake smiled, shaking a finger at the Blue Ranger. I'm not experiencing anything, Tori said, causing the Navy Ranger to stop and look at her. I'm just gonna drop you guys off and then I'm out of there, she told him. Man, Blake laughed quietly before getting into the passenger seat. Let's get the show on the road. Laughing, Tori pulled back onto the road, mindful of the Jeep following them. And that's the last of it. Tori called, grabbing the last bag and slamming her van's door. She walked around the van and found Jenna and Raina staring at the campsite. Looking over everything, she couldn't believe what she was looking at. Now this is the life. Shane set the TV down, and they connected it to the generator. This is ridiculous, Raina commented, glaring at Dustin. Come on Raina, don't you want to stay and camp with us? The Earth Ninja asked with sincerity, don't you want to camp with me? When she smiled a little, they received a few smirks from the others. This isn't camping, this is a resort. Tori managed to find her voice. All you need is a water slide and a luau, she said as Shane tossed Dustin the remote for the TV. That would be cool, he told her as Blake laughed before watching the TV. As much fun as it would be to camp with you, Raina whispered, away from the others, it would be a little difficult. We wanted to take things slow and keep quiet about it. I don't think that would be possible in this situation. He smirked, rain check. He leaned closer, just you and me. Deal. Look at Zoe and Andy's tents. Jenna called, getting their attention. They have their fire, some cooking equipment, and chairs. She pointed to their friends already pulling out their games. And they're gonna do something besides watch TV and play on a laptop. She finished, glaring at her boyfriend. Anybody want to order pizza? Hunter called as he stood up, ignoring his girlfriend's look, and walked over to the phone they had brought with them. Yeah, I'm in. Blake nodded. Except, none of that ham and pineapple stuff, all right, he called to his brother. Fine, Hunter rolled his eyes. No signal, he realized as he checked the phone. That's why Zoe brought a satellite phone. Jenna held up a hand to ward off their hopeful looks. For emergencies, you hyenas. Looks like we're having hamburgers. Hunter decided, looking at the boys. You could have camped out at Ninja Ops. There's plenty of field there. Raina said, looking around at everything. Would have made more sense to just camp out in their living room. I mean, come on, Jenna pointed, a TV, a fridge, laptop, and a generator. And you would have had signal to order a pizza. We're not children. Shane shook his head, only kids build forts and camp in their living room. It sort of defeats the purpose. I think you missing the purpose, Tori commented. I mean, what's the point? The point is, to have fun. Blake replied with a grin. You sure you don't want to stay? He offered. Thanks, but I gotta get back, Tori shook her head. Cam needs some help back at Ninja Ops. I said I'd help out since we don't have anything else going on. Not us, Reina raised her hand. Jenna's gonna work with me on some ice ninja techniques. Gonna work on expanding my martial arts knowledge. Besides, I need a sparring partner. Beating up on Andy is getting old. Everyone laughed. Later guys, Jenna kissed Hunter bye and walked over to the van. They're not taking your Jeep? Blake looked at Zoey, pointing to her baby. Hell no. She crossed her arms as Andy leaned on her shoulder. No one, besides Tommy, drives my Jeep. And that's only because he's my brother and he rebuilt the engine. She's let Jason drive it before, but that's because it was late at night and not far to drive. He paused. Wasn't it your Jeep they ended up driving Emily to the hospital in when she was in labor with Eden? Sighing, the Pink Ranger frowned. Yeah. Talk about an emergency. And it took forever to get the panicked father smell out of the seats. Okay, then. The Navy Ranger looked over when Tori yelled. We'll be back the day after tomorrow to pick you guys up. Bye. Tori called, jumping into the van as they all called out their goodbyes. She started up the engine, but it sank in the mud, causing the tires to spin out of control. Seeing it, Andy just busted out laughing. Tori poked her head out of the window to look at the back. Seeing the tire sunk in the mud, she laid her head down in defeat. Oh, great. Hey, Tor. Zoey yelled, you look a little stuck there. Joining in the laughter, she walked over with the guys. Need a little help? Tori poked her head out of the window to glare at Zoey. Shut it, Pinky. Seeing Reina and Jenna cracking up caused Zoey and Andy to laugh even more. Guys? Can I get a little help? She asked. The boys walked over and stood at the back of the van to push. Zoey, anticipating the muddy results, stood as far back as possible. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Tori revved the engine as the boys pushed from behind, splattering them in mud. The van jerked forward, causing them to fall to the ground, covering them in more mud. Tori, stop. Zoey heard Jenna call out before the van crashed into the generator, causing everything to turn off. Zoey doubled over, laughing hysterically, not pretending to hide it. Jenna and Reina covered their mouths, snickering as the boys appeared in front of the van, now covered head to toe in the mud. My bad, Tori said as she gave the boys a sheepish and slightly apologetic look, while trying not to grin. Waiting for the boys to return from their shower, the girls sat by the stream talking. So, Tommy sent Justin to pay a visit to the Nomad. Reina poked Zoey in the side. Did he explain why he did that? Well, in his defense, he claimed it was to make sure I wasn't making any bad decisions. The Pink Ranger paused. Nope. No defense. He has no good excuse. No reason, whatsoever, for him to assume I would make a bad decision. None. She shook her head. In his defense, Jenna repeated, he is your brother. It's a protective instinct. The Neanderthal trait. Making them grin. Zoey got a little mischievous as she created an arrow of light and shot it into the boys' tent. When they heard the screams and yelps of surprise, the girls had to cover their mouths to keep from laughing. Zoey. How'd they know that was me? She said innocently as Dustin and Andy came out first. Man, I haven't had that much mud in my eyes since I ran out of tear-offs last week, Dustin complained, rubbing his shoulder. That stung, you know. The girls stood up, and Tori smiled apologetically. That was low wattage, dude. Andy shook his head. Wait until she cranks it up. You guys, I am so sorry about your generator, she apologized. It's not your fault, Blake waved it off with a smile. Things happen, he told her. Interesting. He looked mad when he came out of the tent. Jenna threw her arm around Tori's shoulder. There must be something about you that made all the mad go away. Can I make you go away? Tori asked, glaring at the Purple Ranger before turning back to the guys. How was your shower? Well, you could say it was refreshing, Shane said. But cold would be more accurate, Hunter countered with a laugh. Really wish I had my camera out. The White Ranger smiled. Well, I know this doesn't exactly make it up to you, but we put your burgers on the grill, and your sodas are getting cold in the stream, Tori said, making the boys smile. Hey, it sounds good to me, Blake said, lifting the lid of the grill. You're forgiven. You're forgiven, Zoe mocked. Does he have selective hearing? We put the burgers on the grill, and we put the sodas in the stream. She threw her arms up in frustration. Hello. Focus. Tori glared at her as she sighed in resignation. She saw Raina hold up her hands in the shape of a heart, causing everyone but Tori and Blake to laugh. Hearing a disturbance, they looked up to see two blurs descend to earth. Come on. Shane called before they took off. It wasn't long until they came upon Vexicus and Shimatsu in a clearing. I thought I smelled garbage. Hunter yelled at them. Oh, we'll see who gets trashed, Vexicus said, as he and Shimatsu laughed. Zordon, help me. Zoe slapped a hand on her forehead. Can they get any more stereotypical? I mean, come on. Where's the originality? Don't give them any ideas. Andy whispered, we put up with them enough as it is. Hey, no offense, Shane said, ignoring the pink and black rangers, but you two don't seem like the outdoor types. We're not, Vexicus agreed, we just came to watch your ultimate demise. Shimatsu nodded, standing behind him. Don't you mean Kals, our ultimate demise? Tori asked, raising an eyebrow. Okay, I like your way better. Vexicus determined with a laugh. Really, Tori? Zoe exclaimed, remind me to have another talk about fate. Who loves to laugh at rangers? They had to dive out of the way to avoid the blast Vexicus fired at them. Jenna glared at the Blue Ranger, never correct the bad guys, unless it's in our favor. Man, just when you thought it was safe to have a day off, Shane complained, scowling at the laughing pair. Ready? Ready. Ninja storm. Fire storm. Ice storm. Lightning storm. Thunderstorm. Ranger form. Ha! Ninja Ranger power. The Thunder and Lightning Rangers teamed up to take on Shimatsu, while Zoe and Jenna teamed with the Wind Rangers to fight Vexicus. Charging the Shark Freak, he knocked them back with ease. He caught Dustin's sword, and threw the Yellow Ranger to the ground with a strong punch to the stomach. He blocked Zoe's strike and sent her into a boulder. Ice fans. Arctic ice, Jenna flicked her wrist and shot shards of ice at Vexicus. He blocked them and knocked her back with a swing of his swords. Come on guys. Shane called. Put them together. Storm Striker, he, Tori and Dustin combined their weapons and aimed the cannon at Vexicus. Strike this. Vexicus blasted, making them drop the Storm Striker. Do you like spaghetti? He mocked and hit the Wind Rangers and Jenna with string-like energy. It wrapped around them and hauled them into the air, sending electrical shocks through them and slamming into each other before falling back to the ground. Guys. Zoe called, trying to stand back up. Looking over at the Thunder and Lightning Rangers, it seemed that they were having the same problems with Shimatsu. Thunder Staff. Tornado Star. Hunter yelled, stepping in front of a fallen Blake, try this. He shot a blast at the warlord, but it just made the villain laugh before he disappeared. What? Raina frowned, looking around. I'm going loca. Where'd he go? Blake cried out as he looked around. I'm so close to victory, I can taste it. Shimazu said, turning into a giant head and flicked his tongue out at them. He then blasted at them with lasers from his eyes, knocking them to the ground. We're getting licked? Hunter asked, looking up. Shimatsu and Vexicus stood together, laughing as the Rangers regrouped. It seems you have met your match. Shimatsu taunted. The Rangers backed up a little, trying to conserve their energy. You're finished, Rangers. Vexicus laughed. He took a step towards the team, only to be blasted back as Cam arrived to help. Cam. Great. Tori smiled happily under her helmet. I picked up something on the radar, headed this way, the samurai said, looking briefly at the rangers before turning towards Vexicus and Shimatsu. What? Worse than these two super freaks? Shane demanded, running over to grab Cam by the shoulders. Yeah, way worse, he nodded, pushing Shane off him. Great. Andy shook his head, like we needed worse. Hey, Rangers. Vexicus called, gaining their attention. Nobody's worse than we are. I would have to agree. Shimatsu nodded with a laugh of his own. No one messes up my weekend. Hunter shouted angrily. The Wind and Thunder Rangers combined their weapons, creating the thunderstorm cannon, aiming it at the pair. Ready? Fire. They shot the ball of energy at the two generals, only for it to be blasted back at the Rangers, knocking them off their feet. Guys. Cam yelled as he, Zoe and Jenna rushed over with the Lightning Rangers to help them as the two laughed. This is too easy. Shimatsu said, resting his hands on his hips. The ground suddenly started to shake, causing everyone to look up as a giant Megazord came up out of the ground. What's that? Shane cried out as they stared up at it. I really want to say something sarcastic right now, Reina looked over at their leader, but I just don't have it in me. Prepare to be destroyed, a voice declared as the Zord towered over them. Zergain. Cam groaned as the ground shook again. Not again, Dustin groaned from the ground. Fight me, if you dare, he challenged them. Haven't you had enough failure for one day? Shimatsu yelled up at him, angry that the faceless general was cutting in on their action. I've had about enough of these generals today, Zoe looked at Shane, how about you? Agreed, Shane nodded before looking back up at the Zord, you're on Zergain. They got back to their feet and called on their own Zords. Once formed, the 5 Megazords turned, facing off against the faceless general. I'm waiting. Zergain taunted as he watched them. We haven't used this one in a while. Tori chose a power disc. Power disc, locked and dropped. The power sphere shot out, opening up to reveal a giant metal star. Star Blazer. It fired, causing 4 different colored stars to connect and explode on impact with Zergain's Zord. That got him. Tori cheered, and the Thunder Megazord stepped up. This one's mine. Hunter called out, locked and dropped. Jenna, Zoe looked over at her partner. Are you getting a funny feeling about all of this? No doubt. Sting Blaster. They fired their blaster, but Zergain knocked it back. I got one for ya. Cam called. Locked and dropped. He called on the Beast Spinner and threw it at the villainous Zord, only for it to end up like the others. Now it's my turn. Zergain called out as he blasted the 5 Zords. Upon impact, they exploded and crashed to the ground. Zoe hit her head on the console. Dizzy, everything around her started to spin. In the distance, she heard Zergain laughing maniacally. My victory is at hand. Zoe looked around, confused. Why am I back in the field? Seeing the war raging all around, she fell to her knees in pain. Her head, throbbing like the beat of a drum, swam in and out of focus. What happened? The Rangers. The Zords. Zergain. Feeling faint, she looked over at the bright red light, coming in her direction. Though her vision was fading, she saw an outline in the red light. A phoenix? To be continued. That's it for Chapter 27 of Ninja Storm, the Pink Ninja Ranger. I'll be having a lot more of this series out soon, continuing the Pink Ranger story. Remember, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. As always, may the power protect you, and see you for the next adventure.